Hello and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to be sharing with you how to cut a monostrap bustier pattern. So if this is something you like, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button. Let's dive right into today's video. So here on my pattern, I've gone ahead to mark my basic measurements, which includes my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, and shoulder to waistline. Next, I will mark my shoulder divided by 2, which is 14 divided by 2. I have 7. Come down by 1 inch, and I'm going to go ahead to connect and draw my shoulder slope. Now, I'll be marking a basic neckline of 3 by 3 inches, which will be serving as a guide, but I'll go ahead and blend in my shoulder slope. Now I'll place my curve drew and I'm just going to go ahead to connect my pattern. After I'm done connecting my pattern, the next step is to find your chest line, which is your armhole, and to do that is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. I'll mark what I have on the shoulder down there and I'll connect to have a straight line. Now I'll place my ruler and I'm going to rule a straight line at that point as my chest line. At the chest line, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4, fold up my tape into 2 and share my armhole, come out by ½ inch at that point, connect my ruler from my bust circumference divided by 4 to that ½ inch at the armhole and to the upper part of my shoulder. So here I have my shoulder slope. So here I'll move along and I'll mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, which is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5. After I'm done marking that, I'm just going to place and rule a straight line connecting to the waist, to the under bust and to the bust part. Now I'll be taking a dart intake of 1 inch at both sides. And I'll also go ahead to mark that for my waistline. And if you're a plus size or you're a bit busty, you're going to be using 1.5 inches. So I'll just go ahead and connect. Place my curve through, touching my bust and touching my under bust. Connect and also repeat the same process at the other side of my pattern. So I'll go ahead to cut out the waistline of my pattern and I will leave it this way. So next I'm going to go ahead to divide what I have on the shoulder into 2 and I will mark. And after that I'll go ahead to connect from that point down to my chest line, and this is what I have. So after this you'll be deciding where you want your bustier to start. So I'll be marking 1.5 inches from my chest line. I'll draw a line and I'll be marking a dart intake of 1 inch at both sides and I'll go ahead to connect. Now if you're a plus size, you're going to go ahead to use 1.5 inches or 2 inches. It totally depends on the person you're cutting the bustier for. So I'll go ahead to mark my bust circumference at my chest line, measure the dart intake, replace it and add my sewing allowance. Now I'll just go ahead to extend my chest line and mark that same measurement at the bust. I'll mark my under bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace and add my sewing allowance. So at the waistline, you can decide to use your waist circumference or you can just snatch it out a little. My waist circumference is 28. I'll take out 2 inches, that's 26 divided by 4. I'll mark, measure the dart intake, replace and add my sewing allowance. So you can use 1.5 inches, 2 inches or 2.5 for this. Just add your sewing allowance to your pattern. So I'll just go ahead and connect and this is what I have. So I'll be transferring all this measurement on this side to the other side of my pattern. So I'll go ahead and I will cut out the rest of my pattern before altering the neckline. So after cutting it, I'm going to go ahead to open it this way and we're going to start. So from the center this way, I'm going to start from my bust line and I'll connect it and connect the other side this way. So after I'm done doing that, I'll just go ahead to repeat the same process at the other side of my pattern also. And while cutting out this side, you're going to be considering the monostrap at that side. So for this pattern, we actually have is a 2-in-1 pattern. The first is a bustier and the other part is like a lace placement of a monostrap on the bustier pattern. So I'll go ahead and connect to the neckline, and from this part also I'm going to be connecting to the neckline of my pattern. I'll come up and I'll mark 1.5 inches. So this is just basically a mono strap, and just like I said, this pattern is into two, a bustier and a lace placement. So if you're making exactly this style, you're going to first of all cut out your bustier pattern, and you're going to be draping out or cutting out this lace placement on your client's body directly. But if you're cutting this as a mono strap, you're just going to cut it out this way and join your neck piece back to the pattern after you're done sewing. So I'll just go ahead and I will cut out the rest of my pattern. So if you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button. So after I'm done cutting, so if you're just making a mono strap bustier, this is what you'll be having exactly. But if you're cutting out what we have on the thumbnail, after you're done cutting this out, you're going to be creating a lace placement on your client's body, and you're going to trace out the shape of the mono strap and the bustier on the pattern. So now let's head over to the back pattern. So for the back pattern, I marked my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waistline. So I'll go ahead to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, just like we marked at the front pattern, and I'll also mark that at the waistline. So I'll go ahead to place my ruler, and I'm going to be drawing out a straight line at this point. So after I'm done drawing out, I'm going to go ahead to mark 1/2 inch on both sides of my waist, and I will be connecting that to the upper part of my pattern. And after doing that, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4, add my sewing allowance. At the under bust, I'll mark my under bust circumference, measure the little dart intake, and add my sewing allowance. So the waistline you used for the front, if you snatched your waist, that's what you'll be doing. And after marking that, measure the dart intake you place and add your sewing allowance. So after I'm done doing this, I'll just go ahead to connect my pattern. I'll connect from the bust down to the under bust and to the waistline of the pattern, and after that I'll come in by 1.5 inches. That is if you're creating a lacing bar area for this, but if you're adding a zipper, you're just going to add a zip in front. I'll make a dot to indicate the lacing bar area. So I'll come down by 1/2 inch at this point, and I'll go ahead to connect it to my chest line. And after this, I'll just go ahead to cut out my pattern for the back, as simple as this. So if you want to add a zipper in front, you can just go ahead to add a zipper to your pattern, and you won't be creating a lacing bar for it. So after cutting out, this is what I have for the back pattern.